Yes, indeed, we lost the feed there due to some technical gremlins, but we've managed to sort them out with my colleague Kwazi Manzi. But I'm just going to bring and go straight to the Secretary General of the ANC over the issues of whether the Integrity Commission or Integrity Commission of the ANC is applying an animal farm method of some animals are more equal than others. SG, you've just brought back Denim Caesar and Florence Radzelani. Here on the one side, you are suspending Kusela Diko, Bandile Masugu and Loiso Masugu and sending them to the Provincial Integrity Commission. Does this Integrity Commission have any teeth when seemingly it's not being listened to by the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress?
I don't know why you say so, because David Masondo has appealed. And in the ANC there are processes. Once you appeal, that particular case takes a particular turn. And some of the comrades volunteered to just step aside a bit. Where is justice where you suspend people through an allegation and you put them to freeze for almost 2 years? But that is not the case, because I can't talk that. I'm just talking the decision of the National Executive Committee. Denim Caesar and Florence must assume their responsibilities as soon as we are done with engagements with our structures and stakeholders in Limpopo.
SG, on the issues facing the Integrity Commission, the late Mbabu Mlangeni complained, especially through one of his friends, Malusi Kekana, in saying that he grew increasingly frustrated of the inaction of the ANC NEC in the recommendations of the Integrity Commission. You've got similar calls by some who are saying the Integrity Commission is playing factional politics within the African National Congress. In fact, to quote one ANC NEC member whom I won't mention, he says the Integrity Commission has no integrity. Is it playing factional politics within the ANC?
Well, let me not talk on behalf of Baba Mlangeni, because he's no more. May his soul rest in peace. And just talk about the position of the African National Congress and the fact that the Integrity Commission has been doing its work, and the Integrity Commission has been interacting with the leadership of the ANC. And those are internal matters of the African National Congress. And the ANC has its constitution and it has its own resolution of the National Conference, which is the highest decision-making body. So I can't say anything about the things of individuals. Let the individuals come up and say whatever they say, so that they show that they are not disciplined members of this African National Congress.
SG, on international politics, your fraternal organization, your ally in Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, is officiating on alleged human rights atrocities that are currently taking place in that country. Citizens, journalists are being jailed with the protests that have sprung in the capital and throughout the country, Zimbabwe. Have you spoken to your counterpart, ZANU-PF? And has President Ramaphosa had an engagement with President Emmerson Mnangagwa on what's going on in that country where there's political turmoil and the economy has basically imploded?
Well, we are in the African continent, and we are liberation movements. We have fought for freedom. We have fought for the rights of our citizens. We respect the sovereignty of each and every country. But we don't accept when society, as we see on television, people being beaten and all that. We don't think it's the right thing to do. But what I know is that President Ramaphosa, through government structures, President Ramaphosa as AU leader of the AU is actually in touch with President Mnangagwa. And I think we should leave them and give them that space. Of course, we are talking to, we have talked to those Zimbabweans who are exiled here in the country. We have talked to them, they have raised their concerns, and we are trying to facilitate the discussions between them and ZANU-PF and the leadership of Zimbabwe, because we care about the people of this continent. We care about our neighbors. We want peace and stability so that there is economic development in the region, SADC. So let's give Comrade Ramaphosa and ourselves that space to continue condemning the atrocities wherever they actually happen by whoever, because we see them. It is not the right thing to do.
SG, you as the ANC were in the streets fighting for the liberation of this country. The apartheid armed forces went into the townships. They beat up people. You've got massacres such as Boipatong. What the Zimbabwean government is doing in Zimbabwe is absolutely wrong and is absolutely something you stood against in the yesteryears of struggle. But what are you proactively doing as the African National Congress to liberate the people of Zimbabwe from these atrocities that are facing from a former liberation movement?
You know, international politics and entering the space of another country is not as easy as we want to say. We have declared so in the Freedom Charter. We want peace and friendship. And the ANC has been very vocal. Where anything wrong happens, it doesn't matter whether you are a friend or an erstwhile friend. Where something is wrong, we have said it is wrong. But we believe in politics of engagement, persuasion, and I think because of our relationship with Zimbabwe people and ZANU-PF, let's give President Ramaphosa, as I say, and DERCO to continue doing their work. And we are also doing our work as the African National Congress together with our ZANU-PF to say we can't allow such atrocities to take place. Please fix your house, put it in order. But we also see the hand of counter-revolutionary, because in any revolution there is counter-revolutionary. There is counter-revolution. But that is not an issue for now. The issue is that we call for stability and economic prosperity of Africa.
SG, the AU chairperson currently, President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, has been very quiet on this issue. Well, to the public domain, that be. He said nothing on his Twitter page. He said nothing through the official communication of the presidency on what's currently happening in Zimbabwe. Just yesterday, he was having a SADC meeting and the African Union meeting. Did he raise these issues there when they were speaking of other African countries in that meeting? Did they raise the issue of Zimbabwe in your engagement with him, President Ramaphosa?
But why do you want to know confidential discussions of countries and presidents? Of course, there's no way President Ramaphosa could not have raised this matter in SADC as well as the African Union. Definitely, such matters are currently out there. You have never seen me on Twitter and on the space. So President Ramaphosa has his own leadership style. I have my own leadership style. Every leader has and I know he's playing a very important role in addressing the situation in Zimbabwe, in Libya, and many other countries in the world, which we are not talking about, whether it's Ethiopia, whether it's India, whether it's, of course, the president has actually been talking about those current issues.
There's been a call, SG, domestically by the leader of the United Democratic Movement, Bantu Holomisa, that there should be a caretaker government taking place, parliament should be dissolved, and we constitute a new government in the country. What is the ANC's view of the UDM basically calling for the dissolution of parliament and government effectively?
I haven't heard the reasons. My comrade General Bantu Holomisa, I just see that he's making that call. I don't know it's informed by what, so it will be difficult for me to comment.
On what's currently happening in the country, SG, you as the ANC launched an ANC Friday in the midst of the corruption allegations that some of your leaders have been embroiled in. Is the ANC not showing a sign of arrogance instead of solving the issues that are plaguing South Africans and the corruption that is taking place? It looks inwards and decides to close ranks and defend itself?
We won't close ranks. We have decided as the National Executive Committee to fight with vigor corruption, any acts of corruption, not what the media say and think. We said let's act responsibly and act decisively, and we have never been. And we want to apologize if we project ourselves as an arrogant organization, because political arrogance is not what the character of the African Nationalist Congress is all about. We're supposed to be humble, we have to serve our people with distinction, and we have to hear the voice of our people, and we're not closing our ears. I'm sure we hear what society is actually saying, not what the media is saying. We are leaders on the ground. If there are those who are not on the ground, we know the feelings, and we understand. We hear even the leaders and the feelings of black business, that in this country, after 25 years, black business, a black man, not only business, a black man, it looks like the gains of the revolution are being reversed. And this is why I say it needs for black consciousness and mental consciousness, and stand up as black people, as Africans, as South Africans, and defend the gains of our revolution. They must never be retraced. We must never regress. We must move forward, but we must lead with humility, no political arrogance. Where we are criticized, where I'm criticized as an individual, Ace Magashule, Secretary General, I'll accept the criticism and I'll move on. Where I think society is right in terms of wrongs I may have committed unconsciously, I will accept. That's how leadership of the African National Congress is supposed to behave.
I'll put it to you, SG, that the ANC is playing lip service when it comes to fighting corruption. Can you give us one politician who's been embroiled in issues of corruption, who's went to jail in the past, let's say 6 years?
But who jails people is the court of law. It's not you and I. Why do you want me to jail somebody? Why do you want me to find somebody guilty as an individual, as the media? Because we must serve the masters who wants to destroy the African National Congress. No.
Who are those masters?
Can't you see? Some of them control your media houses. They tell you what questions to pose, when to pose it, the timing and all that.
SG, you speak of the gains of the revolution being reversed. Who's reversing these gains when it's the ANC that's in power? When it's the ANC that's controlling and putting the policy direction of the country from the union buildings and from here, where we seated at Luthuli House? Who's reversing these gains? Is it your own people?
Well, in any revolution, I will answer your question very simple. I don't want even to motivate. In any revolution, there is counter-revolution. And South Africa cannot be separated, or after 25 years of freedom, the operatives of the past are very active now to reverse the gains of the African National Congress.
How are they doing
blindly
that?
Said.
How are they doing that? Where's the proof of that, SG?
They lie, they write books, they repeat lies, you believe the lies, they control the media, they close people's accounts because they want one voice to be heard.
How far are you with the legal process against Peter Louis Meiberg on Gangster State, a book against your alleged corruption?
I have lawyers who know better and understand the law better, quite experienced lawyers who are not lawyers of yesterday. Many of them are senior counsel. Everything I do, I consult because I have rights as a South African.
How far is that legal process? Has it been enrolled in the court roll?
Leave it to the lawyers. In politics, time and space and timing is important.
SG, Mayor Spielman, where you come from, was embroiled in a racial slur against the colored community in your province. He's just been reinstated to his position as the mayor. What's your view?
In the ANC, there are processes. When you are found guilty, you appeal. There is an appeal structure of the African National Congress. I have seen the letter. I have not looked at the contents. I don't know how you even know first before me. But in the ANC, there are processes. The ANC is part of South Africa. There is the rule of law, and the constitution of the ANC is not above the constitution of South Africa. But the ANC regulates itself in terms of its own constitution. And whatever might have happened, you can get those details, I'm sure, from the Appeals Committee of the African National Congress. I don't have facts.
The former president tweeted today that
Which former president?
Former President Zuma, that iyanetha indlu, iyabhubhudla inkezo, indlu yegagu iyanetha.
Yegagu. Explain that to me.
It was essentially meaning that there are problems and the rain is coming into a well-respected institution.
That's why we must humble ourselves as the African National Congress. That's why we must self-introspect. That's how we must act as a collective. That's how we must respect the resolutions of National Conference. For as long as you don't do what National Conference have said and you want to explain it, why we can't do and implement certain decisions. I don't know in Zulu, it means it is our neta. But the ANC must find itself, despite all the criticism, the ANC must humble itself, listen to the voices of our supporters and South Africans, because millions of South Africans are supporters of the ANC. They love it. They are not supporting us as individuals. There's no individual in the ANC who's more popular than the ANC. And I think the more we can realize that I, Ace Magashule, I'm not popular than the ANC. And at times maybe we have lost it and we think I'm so and so, I'm bigger than the African National Congress. I listen to other voices. First and foremost, I derive my mandate, and people think it's out of arrogance. It's not out of arrogance. I derive my mandate from the Constitution of South Africa. I derive my mandate from the African National Congress resolutions, and I stick to them because I'm the custodian of the resolutions of the African National Congress as the ANC, and nobody except National Conference can convince me to move away from such resolutions. But I understand material conditions from time to time, at times why certain decisions are not implemented, and when there are difficulties we have to go back to the organization and structures and explain. But you do that collectively as the African National Congress, and I always interact with structures on the ground, and region and provinces and the National Executive Committee. So we need to fix our house, and we need to talk with one voice. We need to be disciplined. We need to ensure that we don't leak, because if you leak information of the ANC, like the Integrity Commission leaks and all that, it means we are infiltrated. It means it's possible that we are working with the operatives of the past, of apartheid, because if you are a self-respecting leader, you don't do what is actually happening. If I want to talk openly about what's happening in the ANC and I have a view, I come here and I say it. But I don't talk about my own view as Ace Magashule. I communicate the decision of the National Executive Committee, and that decision says let's deal with corruption decisively.
SG, on the terms of speaking with one voice, COSATU and the South African Communist Party have had reservations with your government going to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank for a solidarity fund when it comes to the issues of fighting this particular pandemic of COVID-19. Did you not take them into your confidence?
Who wouldn't worry about IMF and World Bank? Who's a member of the African National Congress, who's the leader of the African National Congress. When COSATU and SABC raised these matters, we said, we hear you, we agree with you, we'll never sell and outsource the national security and sovereignty of this country. We'll protect it by all means. And therefore, those comrades in government must ensure that the conditions of whatever money we get from whoever must never actually take us back. And then the generations to come, for many years to come, are going to be paying the debts of South Africa. Somebody is going to tell us what to do. We are a sovereign country, we are independent, we have policies, and no IMF, no World Bank will dictate our policies. And I think they are right where they have issues. I think they will raise them. They are independent structures. We respect them for whatever they are saying. And we will discuss whatever their concerns. because their concerns on IMF and COSATU, IMF and World Bank has been our concerns. But we said it should be a concern around all institutions, financial institutions, wherever we may actually go. And we said that's why we must raise money internally as South Africa. So those discussions will take place internally. We'll hear what COSATU and SACP are saying. And where they are right, even if I'm a member of the National Executive Committee, we'll discuss those things. But the collective decision of the National Executive Committee of the ANC will bind me. Because the ANC is also an independent organ, COSATU is an independent organ, and that's why we have to merge wherever we can merge and persuade one another. But we all agree that we must never sell out the sovereignty and security of a national interest of South Africans.
Then why did you go there in the first place if you don't seemingly agree?
No, we said we can go anywhere. We must look at the conditions.
Public enterprises are going through a turmoil right now. SAA is not in the skies, it's grounded. They are forming a new airline. Your former associates, the Guptas, whom you've lauded as good business people.
My former associates? Those are not my former associates, those were business people. You know, in South Africa, you guys are creating a perception that we have interacted with the Guptas. I've interacted with white business in South Africa, big white business, whether it's Alan Gray, when I went to ask for money for students, bursaries, I interacted with YT Bason, Shoprite Checkers, when I was premier and I went to Pick and Pay, where we were actually raising, I went to Netcare to ask for sanitary towels. I've interacted with white monopoly in South Africa. And there is nothing wrong to interact with black people who have been marginalized throughout years of apartheid and still now. So I must champion, as an African National Congress leader, I must champion black economic empowerment. It is our policy. We have agreed even now. That is our policy position. We should not talk it, we must run it. We must run and make sure that black people in a credible way must actually be empowered without being apologetic, because the country's economy will never change. And I'm not doing this thing out of populism. It's a position of the African National Congress. Black economic empowerment, BEE, it's a policy of the ANC even now, and we have adopted in this past National Executive Committee the fact that we should not be apologetic about BEE. For as long as whatever we do as government, wherever we are, and as public servants, for as long as whatever we do should not be corruption. All right? But the land and the economy of this country is still, you have said, as I listen to news, 50% of the economy of South Africa, two people, or 50% of the economy of South Africa, two families, and they are white and they are male, and you are afraid just to call it white monopoly capital. No, it is.
It's your own conference that said it's not white monopoly capital, it's monopoly capital.
There was a conference
characterized
decision.
as white.
No, we differ on that. There was a conference decision.
will differ with you, SG,
he will differ with me. I was at that conference.
On the issues I was raising on Eskom,
I was with secretaries of all provinces, and all of us were talking quite recently about white monopoly capital.
We'll wait until the next policy conference, SG.
Thank you very much.
SG, on the issues of Eskom. Eskom is recouping about 3.5 billion rands from Machela Koko, is former acting group chief executive and head of generation, Anush Singh, Brian Molefe, and the Guptas, who were business people of Duduzane Zuma and one of Ace Magashule's sons.
My son was working there. Look at the sons of other leaders of the ANC where they're working. Analyze, research, so that you are a journalist who's very objective.
What is the ANC's view of Eskom and Public Enterprises recouping over 3.5 billion rands from its former executives and business people whom allegedly helped loot that power utility?
Well, the ANC has not discussed that. I will be speaking, I'll be raising my own individual position, which is not right. Those people have rights like anybody. I have listened to Brian Molefe yesterday. Maybe interview Brian Molefe, because he was interviewed by 405. As SABC, do your work. I can't talk on their behalf. I can't talk on behalf of Eskom. I'm just saying Eskom must give our people electricity. Eskom must deal with issues of interruptions in our townships, because it is more of our people affected than those who have benefited during apartheid, and they are still continuing to benefit. The poor are still struggling to get electricity. The poor's electricity is being cut off. The billions which Eskom is being owed will never be paid by non-viable municipalities. I can assure of that. And this is why the South African government needs to occupy that space. And Eskom needs to understand that you can't charge people penalties and interest which are so unreasonable, which doesn't make sense, which have been there for years. If you miss to pay Eskom now, there is a penalty, there's interest, which doesn't make sense for me. But those are things which Eskom and government and Salga and minister are dealing with. But here I sympathize with communities where electricity is being cut off now and then whilst they are paying. Other communities don't have any source of revenue. You can go to various municipalities, they don't have any tax base, yet you expect them to pay Eskom 5 billion. It's impossible, my brother.
So essentially, SG, you're saying Eskom should not be prioritizing recouping over 3.5 billion rands that was looted from it?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not entering that space. I'm talking about Eskom and the cut-offs, and Eskom and our people, and Eskom and our municipalities. I'm saying Eskom must understand that municipalities are non-viable, and there's no way they will pay 5 billion.
Why are you not entering that space, SG?
We have entered that space.
Eskom is the biggest threat to this country's economy.
We have entered that space, and that's why we don't need monopolies, because Eskom is a monopoly. That's why you need competition, and that's why black people must enter that space.
Are you advocating for independent power producers?
As an individual, I'm very strong on state-owned enterprises. We can create many other state-owned enterprises who can actually be like Eskom, not one. And there will be competition amongst them. But they must be state-owned, because I believe in strong developmental and interventionist state. That's the position of the African National Congress. It's not my position.
My final question to you, SG, how will you keep the hyenas away from the COVID money?
We should, I'm sure they are listening to you, they hear you. Black people, white people must do business in an ethical way. Whoever does business should not actually be thinking about connections. So I don't know how to give them away. I'm just saying to everybody who's doing anything unlawful, wrong, your time should be up. Can we do things correct, legal, ethical? All of us, we are called upon to do that. And especially the leadership of the ANC, from the head to the last. We must behave the same. We must be seen the same. We must be treated the same. We must be accorded the rights which South Africans are accorded in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, like you and I. And we must be treated the same.
I see the Western Cape SG has published a list of those who got PPE contracts. When are the 8 other provinces governed by the African National Congress publishing the contracts that were awarded for the PPEs? The Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, briefing the Finance Parliamentary Committee yesterday, said that all of those contracts should be shown to the public domain. When are they coming out?
I think they must do so as soon as possible. They must do so. They must tell us who's there. We must know from every corner of South Africa, from the DA, from the ANC government, from any municipality, we should know. From Solidarity Fund, other people are arguing it's private money. The public institutions have put money into that space. We must know, black and white, who has received, whether it's a son of Magashule or not, of any politician. All these things must know, because there are people who got these things probably legally, correctly, without networks and connections and what have you. There are committees deciding on these things. I don't think there is any politician who sits in any committee. That's what the DA will say, that's what the government will say. But watch that space and please report objectively. Please don't fear who is actually involved. Expose all this for what it is, so that South Africans can see that indeed other people are doing business in a very ethical way. Let people not hide behind foundations, behind private sector, behind boards, and that's how they live. I'm one of those who support this lifestyle audit because I'm sure it can tell us how we survive, how we suddenly become instant multi-millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires when we all come from the struggle. How did so and so and you? How now you have 5 houses, you have 10 cars, but we know you are earning a salary of so much. Those are the challenges of South Africa, and I don't want to speak like an angel. I speak like a human being. I speak like a leader of the African National Congress. The position of the ANC says it doesn't matter whether it's your child, whether it's whoever, where corruption takes place, please act. But organs of state must not be unleashed against because of factions in the ANC. The law must not have eyes. Integrity must not have eyes. The media must not have eyes. Just do your work. I will be happy. And you'll be doing what the African National Congress and its forebears have actually been saying we must do. So when it rains and whatever, we need to come together with society, with South Africans, humble ourselves, and say where wrong has been done, we are wrong. We apologize. We have apologized. We can't apologize a billion times. And the truth will prevail. That's what I've learned throughout my life in struggle.
Is the ANC still divided along CR17 and NTZ? Because you're alluding to factional battles along the ANC, along those who are close to capital and those who are seemingly calling for economic reforms.
The position of the African National Congress is radical socio-economic transformation. There's no anything about it. If you don't want to radically transform the economy of South Africa, you are not a member, you are not a leader of the African National Congress. You are something else. Because our conference position is radical socio-economic transformation, of which all members of the National Executive Committee, so that people don't expropriate or people don't say they are radical economic transformation group. The entire ANC is supposed, in case there is anybody who's not, the entire ANC is supposed to radically transform and make sure that the marginalized millions of our people are brought into the mainstream economy of South Africa. And once such a thing happens, there will be peace, stability and order in this country. Whilst few and the elite and whoever, but you can see today even the black elite who succeeded in the past, the black business who did everything and business ethically, you can see business is collapsing. You can see people's houses are being repossessed. You can see those who had cars are being repossessed. In the main majority, black, marginalized, because of the history of South Africa in terms of economy. Transfer the economy into the hands of the majority of South Africans, who are unfortunately black, but our principles are very clear: a non-racial, non-sexist, united, democratic South Africa, and prosperous. But prosperity is not for white. Prosperity is for all of us.
SG, Tating Kadimeng has passed on. The ANC's view on the passing of its own struggle stalwart?
We want to pass our condolences to our stalwart. Those are men and women of that generation which sang the song Sabashia Bazali Ekhaya, Savuma, Sangena Wamanya Mazwe. Those are people who brought and educated us and eroded and narrowed the space of colonialism and apartheid. Those are giants who fought as trade unionists, as disciplined members of the African National Congress, as leaders of substance, as leaders of integrity, as leaders who were selfless, humble. We have been visiting the family of Ndate Nkadimeng, a simple, humble family, a family of who we are, a family of simple, humble children, brothers and sisters. What a wonderful family. And I'm happy that the South African Communist Party has always taken care of Ndate Nkadimeng, a trade unionist of note. Such leaders and generation of Ndate Nkadimeng, of Andrew Mlangeni, that generation has passed and is passing so fast. We so wish and pray and resolve wherever we are that their life and their spirit must live on. They will remain forever in the hearts of many South Africans and many people in the continent and people of Africa. So as the ANC, we pass our condolences to the Nkadimeng family, to the children, to the wife, brothers and sisters. We pass our condolences to the South African Communist Party, to the African National Congress, and to the entire South Africa, and to those who fought for freedom. We are here where we are today because of efforts and struggles waged by these veterans of our revolution. And I mean real veterans of our revolution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magashule. I was going to ask you about a certain word that was said by former President Mbeki about that we should not have certain leaders who are imkodoi, taking charge of our lives. How will you keep those hyenas away from the COVID-19 money?
I don't talk on behalf of any leader. I respect the elders of the African National Congress. So I close by saying, let's fight corruption wherever it rears its ugly head. It doesn't matter who you are in the ANC. Don't target certain people. Don't divert attention from the fact that millions and billions and trillions in this COVID are actually being taken. And whenever there is a thing, something comes in to divert the attention from the real people who are eating into, who are thieves, and who are actually making sure that they divert the attention of South Africans. Do your work as journalists, and all the best.
Well, Flo Lidwaba, that was the Secretary General of the African National Congress, calling on those who are in business to ethically conduct their business in this era of this COVID-19 pandemic, saying that he doesn't know how they will stop this corruption from going on, but law enforcement must play their role, and that there is no law that prevents children of politicians from doing business with government. Andile Ramaphosa is in the business space, the son of President Ramaphosa, just like Duduzane Zuma, the son of the former President of the Republic, and Ace Magashule's sons, Tsepiso and Tato, are doing business in the Free State when it comes to PPE contracts. The question is, do these children have an unfair advantage of getting these contracts than other ordinary South Africans?
All right. What I'm learning about you, Samkele, is that last question doesn't necessarily mean last question. All right. But thank you very much for that conversation you had there with the Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule. We'll certainly be weighing in on that later on in the show.